All right, let's talk about one of the biggest myths in real estate, that if you don't put 20% down, you're doing it wrong, you're an idiot, a moron, or you're in line for financial disaster, etc. I'm here to tell you right now, that's all garbage. Now, look, I'm not saying 20% down is bad. It can absolutely make sense in certain situations, but this idea that it's the only smart way to buy a home, that's outdated, oversimplified, and honestly, for a lot of buyers, it's just flat out bad advice. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through the real math, the real trade-offs, and help you figure out what actually makes the most sense for you. Because let me tell you, draining your bank account just to hit that mythical 20% number isn't always the win people think it is, especially if it leaves you stressed, strapped, or one car repair away from panic mode. So if you've been wondering whether you should put 20% down or you've been stressing because you can't, relax and don't go anywhere. I'll break this down the way it should have been explained to you from the start. If we haven't met yet, I'm Karl Kyler, your San Diego Realtor, and I've been helping buyers get into the market since 2004. And let me tell you right now, not many of them start with 20% down, especially if they're first-time buyers. Now, if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, please consider doing so now, or at least hang around to the very end so I can win you over by then. Now, let's get back into this. Let's start with what 20% actually gets you. First and foremost, it gets you out of paying private mortgage insurance or PMI. That's the extra monthly fee lenders charge when you're putting less than 20% down. Basically, it's insurance for them, not you, in case you default on the loan. It's like paying for someone else's peace of mind. Now, don't get me wrong, skipping PMI sounds great, and for some buyers, that alone might make the 20% worth it. But let's be real, PMI isn't always the villain people make it out to be, and I'll get more into that later. Second, a 20% down payment lowers your loan amount. Obviously, less money borrowed means a smaller monthly mortgage payment. Every $10,000 less you borrow saves you roughly $40 to $60 a month, depending on your rate. So yeah, the math can add up there. And in theory, putting more down could earn you a better interest rate, but here's the kicker. These days, especially with certain government-backed loans, you might actually get a lower rate with less money down. That's right, FHA and VA loans come with lower rates even though you're putting as little as 0 to 3.5% of the purchase price as a down payment. This makes no sense on the surface, but welcome to real estate finance. Oh, and there's one more thing 20% down might get you, a little more flexibility when it comes to how you pay your property taxes and insurance. Some lenders will let you pay those separately instead of rolling them into your monthly mortgage payment. Not always, and not with every loan, but it is something to ask about. To be upfront, this is not something I would recommend if you don't have your finances super dialed in. There are strategies to paying your insurance and property taxes separately, but for the majority of people, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. So to recap, no PMI, lower loan amount, possibly lower monthly payment, maybe some flexibility with how you pay your taxes and insurance. That's the upside. Makes sense, right? These are all positive points that you have to be an idiot not to want to take advantage of. Now, here's the part people don't talk about, what you're giving up when you try to chase that 20% down payment. Now let's talk about the flip side, because 20% down does come with its perks, but it also has some major downsides, most of which don't get talked about enough. Talking about you, Dave Ramsey's. First, let's talk about liquidity. When you drop 20% down on a house, especially in San Diego, you are locking away a huge chunk of savings. That money is gone, completely wiped out from your day-to-day life. You can't easily tap into it unless you sell, refinance, or take out a HELOC. And even then, you're at the mercy of the market and your credit. And if home values dip, that down payment might vanish on paper until the market rebounds. So if you're draining your entire bank account to hit the 20% mark, you're not only buying a house, you're trading financial flexibility for a mortgage. And that's where buyers get stuck. Suddenly you're in the house, but you've got no buffer for repairs, no cushion for job changes, no backup plan if life takes a hard swing at you and makes contact. That's not financial security, folks. That's stress with maybe a granite countertop. Hopefully a granite countertop. Again, to be clear, 20% isn't a bad idea if you got plenty of reserves and your goal is to pay the house off aggressively, but for most buyers, that's not the case. Let me give you a real client example. Husband and wife I worked with, first-time buyers, had saved up enough for 20% down, but instead of using it all up front, they put 10% down and kept the rest in the bank. We talked through the strategy of having a financial buffer for their first year of homeownership. 6 months in, they started making extra principal payments, and by the end of year one, the market had gone up just enough that they were able to refinance, ditch their mortgage insurance, and keep their leftover cash. Win, win, win. Now let's talk about time. For most people, saving 20% isn't something they do in a year. It's 3, 4, or even 5 years of a journey at least. And while you're saving, home prices tend to keep going up. So by the time you finally have 20% down on the house that you were saving for, it's 15% more expensive. You played the rules, the goalpost got moved farther back. It becomes a vicious cycle. As you save more, you only fall further behind. So the real question is if you can save faster than the market is appreciating. If not, you're losing ground by waiting. Now, to be fair, there are scenarios where waiting makes sense. Say you're living at home rent-free and banking 80% of your income, and you've got your savings growing in a high-yield savings account or an investment portfolio. If that's you, waiting to hit 20% might be a smart move. But for most people paying rent every month, the market's appreciation outpaces their ability to save, which means the longer you wait, the further behind you fall. Finally, let's talk about opportunity costs. Let's say you've got $100,000 in the bank and you're eyeing a $500,000 home. You could put down 20%, but is it worth tying up all that cash just to avoid $150 monthly PMI? Or would it make more sense to put 5 to 10% down, keep a healthy reserve, and use the rest to pay off high interest debt, budget for renovations, or invest in other opportunities? Because here's the truth. Real wealth isn't solely built through home equity. Real wealth is built through options. And when you drain your bank account to avoid PMI, a relatively small monthly fee, you're giving up flexibility, safety, and opportunity, all to slightly reduce your mortgage payment. And that trade-off, it's not always worth it. Earlier, I mentioned PMI, private mortgage insurance, but what we haven't talked about yet is how PMI can actually be used strategically to your benefit. Here's the thing, PMI is the #1 reason I hear buyers stress about putting down less than 20%. So let's break it down in plain English, what it really is, how much it actually costs, and how to make it work for you, and when it's worth paying without losing a wink of sleep. This is where the smart money wins, not by avoiding PMI at all costs, but by understanding how to use it. At its core, PMI is insurance that protects the lender in case you stop making your payments. That's it. It doesn't cover you, your house, or your dog. It only covers the lender's risks when you're putting down less than 20%. So here's the part that trips people up. How much does PMI actually cost? On average here, PMI runs about 0.5% to 1% of your loan amount per year, depending on your credit score and how much you put down. So let's say you're buying a $700,000 home and putting 10% down. That's $630,000 of a loan. PMI on that could be somewhere between $260 and $525 a month, ballpark. And here's the key thing, PMI isn't forever. Most people think they're stuck with it for 30 years. That's not true. Once you reach 20% equity, either by paying down your loan or through appreciation followed by a refi, it can be removed. Some loan types like FHA have different rules, but on conventional loans, PMI is almost in every scenario temporary. And I say almost every scenario because there's probably some obscure conventional loan out there that no one uses that has some type of stupid PMI rule attached to it. Now here's how you use PMI to your benefit. Consider PMI the cost to play the game of appreciation. Many buyers use it as a stepping stone. They accept PMI now to get into a home sooner, then refinance or pay down the loan to get rid of it later. It's a calculated move based on two things, principal paydown and appreciation. When the market's appreciating, like San Diego often does, the equity you gain over time can help you kick PMI quicker than it would likely take for you to save up 20% to buy that same home that you were previously paying PMI for. So instead of asking, how do I avoid PMI, a better strategic money-wise question might be, does paying PMI for a few years give me a better long-term position than waiting and saving? For an overwhelming majority of buyers that can buy, the answer is yes. Bottom line, don't think of PMI as a deterrent. Rather, think of it as the cost to access an opportunity to start building your wealth portfolio sooner rather than later. So, how much should you put down when buying a home? Straight and simple, there's no magic number. It is what works for you based on your goals, your lifestyle, and your tolerance for risk. But let me give you a framework that might help you wrap your head around it. 5 to 10% down. This is for buyers who want to get into the market sooner and preserve their cash. Yes, you're gonna pay PMI. Yes, your monthly payment will be higher, but you keep liquidity, you keep options, and you're not draining your emergency fund to buy a house. In markets like San Diego where prices appreciate quickly, this strategy can actually build equity faster than trying to outsave the market. Now, I personally think this is the route many first-time buyers should take. Buying a home comes with more costs than first-time buyers are used to. I always have a discussion with my buyers around the idea of putting 5 to 10% to start, then settle in the home, acclimate to home ownership, and then after 12 to 18 months, if they want, throw the extra cash at the principal then. Next, 10 to 15% down. This is kind of the sweet spot for a lot of people. You reduce your PMI or maybe even eliminate it quicker, lower your loan amount, and still hold some cash. This gives you breathing room for upgrades, unexpected repairs, or just general life stuff without feeling like you went all in and left nothing in the bank. Then you got your 20% or more down. Now, if you got the funds, you've already got reserves, and your goal is to minimize monthly payment and get rid of PMI entirely, yeah, 20% down can work great. This move should come from a position of financial strength, not because you think it's the right way or the only way to buy a home. Bottom line, the smartest move isn't about hitting 20%. It's about buying in a way that keeps you financially safe, emotionally stable, and positioned for long-term growth. If that means putting 8% down and paying PMI for 2 to 3 years while you let the market help you build equity, awesome. If it means putting down 15% and keeping 10 to 20,000 in reserves for peace of mind, that's a win. If you're sitting on cash and ready to deploy 20+% without breaking a sweat, go for it. Just don't let some outdated rule force you into a decision that doesn't match your reality. And that's a wrap for this video. Now be mindful. What I'm saying in this video is relative to your financial situation and the conditions of the market. If you want to talk through both of those dynamics, don't hesitate to give me a call. We can explore your situation and see what makes the most sense for you. And if you have any other thoughts, questions, or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons if I happen to win you over. But if not, feel free to check out my other content to see if that will help your decision to become a subscriber. As always, I'm Karl Kyler, your San Diego Realtor. I'll see you next video.